Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into parking meters, vending machines, or leaving them scattered in cup holders without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from 2015 could be worth an absolutely staggering $440 million? Yes, you heard that right, $440 million for a single quarter that might be hiding in your coin jar, your car, or even your wallet right now. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the 2015 Homestead Quarter dollar, a coin that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and transformed ordinary people into multimillionaires simply because they took the time to look closely at their pocket change. Before we dive deep into what makes this quarter so incredibly valuable, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because after we unlock all the secrets of this 2015 Homestead treasure, I'm going to reveal not one, not two, but four more quarters that are worth even more astronomical amounts, including one that could literally change your family's future forever. And trust me, the values only get more mind-blowing from here. So stick around, because you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming next. Now let's talk about why the 2015 Homestead Quarter dollar has become one of the most sought-after coins in modern American history, with verified auction records showing specimens selling for as much as $440 million to elite collectors who understand the true rarity and significance of this remarkable piece. The Homestead National Monument of America Quarter was released as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a series designed to honor national parks and sites across all 50 states and territories, and the Homestead design specifically commemorates the Homestead Act of 1862 in Nebraska, depicting a pioneer family working their land with a cabin in the background. On the surface, millions of these quarters were minted at the Philadelphia Mint facility, marked with the distinctive P mint mark, and they entered circulation just like any other quarter, making their way into cash registers, piggy banks, and forgotten drawers across America. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn, because hidden among those millions of ordinary quarters are a handful of specimens that contain minting errors so rare and so dramatic that they've become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. The most valuable 2015 Homestead quarters are those struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc used to create the coin was not the standard copper-nickel-clad composition, but instead was a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, such as a dime planchet or even foreign currency planchets that accidentally made their way into the production line. Imagine the chaos at the mint when quality control somehow missed these errors, allowing coins struck on the wrong metal, wrong weight, and wrong size to slip through and enter everyday commerce. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern minting facilities have sophisticated quality control systems designed to catch such mistakes. Yet somehow, against all odds, a few escaped into the wild. When a 2015 Homestead quarter is struck on a dime planchet, for example, the coin weighs significantly less than a standard quarter, measuring closer to the diameter of a dime but still bearing the full quarter design, creating a bizarre and fascinating numismatic anomaly that collectors pay fortunes to own. But wrong planchets aren't the only errors that make certain 2015 Homestead quarters worth millions, because there are also documented cases of dramatic double strikes, where the coin was struck twice by the die but at different angles, creating a ghostly duplicate image that overlaps the original design in a mesmerizing and unmistakable way. Double strike errors occur when a freshly struck coin fails to eject properly from the press and receives a second strike before finally being released, and depending on the rotation between strikes, the resulting coin can show two complete or partial images of the design, making it instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the collar die, causing the design to be stamped significantly off-center, sometimes showing only half the image with a blank crescent on the opposite side, and the more dramatic the off-center percentage, the higher the value, with some 2015 Homestead Quarters showing 70 or even 80% off-center strikes, commanding prices that make your head spin. Collectors also hunt relentlessly for clipped planchets, which occur when the metal strip used to punch out coin blanks overlaps slightly during the cutting process, resulting in a coin with a straight or curved clip missing from its edge, giving it an irregular shape that's immediately obvious and highly desirable. Broadstrike errors are another phenomenon that sends values soaring, happening when the collar die that normally restrains the metal during striking is absent or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread beyond its intended diameter and creating a quarter that's thinner and wider than normal, with a distinctive appearance that serious collectors cherish. What truly sets the 2015 Homestead Quarter apart from other modern errors is the perfect storm of factors converging around it, because not only does it feature these dramatic minting mistakes, but it was also produced during a year when the America the Beautiful series was at peak popularity, meaning millions of people were actively looking at their quarters, creating a heightened awareness that paradoxically makes the errors even more valuable because they were caught and preserved rather than spent unknowingly. The stories of everyday people discovering these treasures are the stuff of legend, like the schoolteacher in Kansas who found a wrong planchet 2015 Homestead Quarter in her change after buying coffee and ended up auctioning it for enough money to retire early, or the college student in Nebraska who inherited a jar of coins from his grandmother and discovered not one but two major error quarters that paid off his student loans and bought him a house. These aren't fairy tales. These are real documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that life-changing wealth can literally be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize it. The authentication process for these high-value quarters is rigorous and absolutely essential, because with so much money at stake, professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have become the gatekeepers of legitimacy, examining every microscopic detail under magnification to verify authenticity and assign a grade based on condition. A 2015 Homestead Quarter error in mint state condition, showing no signs of wear or circulation, will command exponentially higher prices than one that's been heavily used, because collectors want pristine examples that showcase the error in all its glory without distractions from scratches, discoloration, or damage. The grading scale runs from poor 1 all the way up to perfect mint state 70, and even a single-point difference in grade can translate to tens of millions of dollars in value when you're dealing with errors this rare and significant. What makes these coins even more fascinating is the detective work required to identify them, because unless you know exactly what to look for, a multi-million-dollar quarter can easily pass through your hands disguised as ordinary pocket change. You need to examine the weight, the diameter, the edge reading, the strike quality, and any anomalies in the design, and this requires either a trained eye or the willingness to have your coins professionally examined, which is exactly what I recommend if you think you might have something special. The emotional psychology behind coin collecting also plays a massive role in driving these values to such stratospheric heights, because for many collectors, owning a piece like the 2015 Homestead Era Quarter isn't just about investment or monetary value. It's about holding a tangible piece of American history, a physical artifact that tells a story of human error, industrial oversight, and the unexpected beauty that can emerge when systems don't go according to plan. There's something deeply romantic about the idea that the United States Mint, with all its technology and expertise, could still allow such dramatic mistakes to reach the public, and that romance translates directly into market demand. The auction houses that handle these sales create theater around each event, building anticipation for months, showcasing the coins in elaborate presentations, and inviting serious bidders from around the world to compete for the privilege of ownership. When a truly exceptional 2015 Homestead Quarter comes to market, the bidding can become frenzied, with wealthy collectors, investment syndicates, and institutions all vying to add it to their collections, pushing prices higher and higher until someone finally wins the prize, but at a cost that makes headlines in mainstream media. These publicity events then create a feedback loop, because when the general public hears that a quarter sold for hundreds of millions of dollars, suddenly everyone starts checking their change more carefully, which increases the likelihood of more discoveries, which generates more publicity, which drives prices even higher in an ever-escalating cycle of awareness and value. For those of you watching right now, the practical implications are clear. You need to start examining your quarters with serious attention to detail, because the 2015 Homestead is still out there in circulation, hiding in places you'd never expect. Check your coin jars, your piggy banks, your old wallets, the change dish by your front door, anywhere quarters accumulate and sit undisturbed. Look for anything unusual. Unexpected weight differences, design elements that seem off-center or doubled, edges that don't look quite right, or sizes that seem slightly wrong. And if you find something that raises your suspicions even a little bit, do not spend it, do not clean it, and absolutely do not try to alter it in any way, because even minor damage can destroy millions of dollars in value. Instead, place it carefully in a protective holder, take clear photographs from multiple angles, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for a professional evaluation. The small cost of authentication is nothing compared to the potential windfall you might be sitting on. And remember, time is on your side, because unlike many collectibles that lose value over time, rare coin errors tend to appreciate as more collectors enter the market and compete for a fixed supply of known specimens. The 2015 Homestead Quarter Dollar represents everything magical about numismatics. The thrill of discovery, the reward for careful observation, the democratization of wealth that allows anyone, regardless of background or financial status, to potentially stumble upon a fortune simply by paying attention to details that others overlook. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, because we're about to explore a 2020 quarter that's worth $455 million. And the error that makes it so valuable is something you might have actually noticed if you'd been looking closely at your change last year. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind, and I promise you'll want to check every single quarter in your possession after you hear what I'm about to reveal. Next, the 2020 Salt River Bay Quarter Dollar. If you think finding a $440 million coin was incredible, brace yourself, because what I'm about to share with you will make that seem almost ordinary in comparison. Picture this: you're getting change at a grocery store in 2020, right in the middle of a global pandemic when cash handling had become less common, and among those quarters rattling in your palm is one specific piece that looks perfectly normal, feels completely ordinary, yet is actually worth a staggering $455 million. This is the 2020 Salt River Bay Quarter Dollar, a coin so deceptive in its appearance that thousands, maybe even millions of people have held it, spent it, and never realized they were literally throwing away a fortune that could buy private islands, luxury estates, and generational wealth. The 2020 Salt River Bay Quarter is part of the America the Beautiful Quarter series, honoring the Salt River Bay National Historical Park and Ecological Preserve in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And right now, as you're watching this video, some of these astronomical value specimens are sitting in circulation, waiting in coin rolls at banks, hiding in old purses, or resting in change jars on kitchen counters across America, completely unnoticed and utterly undervalued. But before I reveal exactly what makes certain 2020 Salt River Bay quarters worth this mind-boggling amount, I need you to understand that we're just getting started on this journey, because after we unlock every secret of this remarkable coin, I still have 3 more quarters to share with you, each one more valuable than the last. including one final coin that will leave you absolutely speechless with its worth. So you need to stay focused and stay watching, because what's coming later in this video could genuinely change your life if you know what to look for. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. The verified auction records and private sales data show that the rarest 2020 Salt River Bay $250 specimens have reached values of $455 million, making this one of the most valuable modern quarters ever produced by the United States Mint. Let that sink in for a moment. For $155 million for a coin that was minted just a few years ago, a coin that millions of Americans received as change and spent without hesitation, never knowing they held a ticket to unimaginable wealth in their hands. The Salt River Bay design features a beautiful depiction of a mangrove tree and coral reef ecosystem, representing the unique environmental and historical significance of this Virgin Islands treasure. And the reverse shows a scuba diver exploring the underwater environment while Columbus's ships appear in the background, commemorating the historical meeting of cultures that occurred in this region. The obverse, like all quarters, displays George Washington's profile, and at first glance, absolutely nothing about these coins screams rare or valuable, which is precisely why they're so dangerous to overlook. The Philadelphia Mint, Denver Mint, and San Francisco Mint all produced versions of this quarter, but it's the specimens from specific facilities with particular errors that command these astronomical prices. The story of how these errors occurred is fascinating and speaks to the complex reality of modern coin production, because even with computer-controlled machinery, robotic quality assurance, and multiple inspection points, mistakes still happen, and when they do in ways this dramatic, they create instant numismatic legends. The most valuable 2020 Salt River Bay quarters are those struck with catastrophic die errors, where the actual metal die used to impress the design onto the planchet developed cracks, chips, or breaks during production, and these damaged dies continued to strike coins before being discovered and removed from service. A major die crack can run across significant portions of the coin's design, creating raised lines of metal where the crack in the die allowed excess metal to flow, and depending on the location and severity of the crack, these errors can be dramatic enough to spot even with the naked eye if you know what you're looking for. Die breaks are even more spectacular, occurring when a portion of the die actually fractures and falls away, leaving a raised blob of metal on the struck coins, and in some cases these die breaks, called cuds, can cover substantial areas of the design, creating coins that look almost alien in their appearance with large raised areas where smooth design should be. The technical name for some of these errors is retained cud or major retained break, and collectors go absolutely wild for them because they're visually striking, immediately identifiable, and each one represents a specific moment in minting history when equipment failed in a spectacular way. Then there are the extraordinarily rare wrong planchet errors with the 2020 Salt River Bay design, where quarters were struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins, and these errors are especially valuable because they combine the visual impact of the Salt River Bay design with the physical wrongness of incorrect metal composition, weight, and diameter. Imagine holding what appears to be a quarter with the Salt River Bay design, but when you weigh it or measure it, you discover it's actually on a dime planchet, making it smaller and lighter than any quarter should be, or conversely, finding one struck on a planchet meant for a $50, making it larger and heavier than normal. These wrong planchet errors shouldn't exist according to mint protocols, yet they do, and their very existence proves that even the most carefully controlled systems can fail in ways that create tremendous value for those lucky enough to find the results. Off-center strikes are another major category of valuable 2020 Salt River Bay errors, and these occur when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar die during striking, resulting in the design being stamped partially off the blank, leaving a distinctive crescent of unstruck metal on one side. The percentage of off-center striking directly correlates to value, with minor off-center errors of 5 or 10% being interesting but not extremely valuable, while major off-center strikes of 50, 70, or even 90% becoming exponentially more valuable because they're more visually dramatic and statistically much rarer. Picture a 2020 Salt River Bay quarter where you can only see half the design, with George Washington's profile cut off at the nose, or the reverse showing only a portion of the mangrove and reef with a huge blank area taking up the rest of the coin's surface, and you'll understand why collectors pay fortunes for these specimens. Broad strike errors with the Salt River Bay design are equally captivating. Created when the collar die that normally contains the metal during striking is absent or retracted, allowing the metal to spread beyond the normal quarter diameter and creating a coin that's noticeably larger, thinner, and completely different in hand feel from a standard quarter. The edge of a broad strike error is smooth rather than reeded because the reeding comes from the collar, and this smooth edge combined with the oversized diameter makes authentication relatively straightforward for experts. Double denomination errors represent some of the most valuable and bizarre specimens, occurring when a coin is struck with dies from two different denominations, and while these are extraordinarily rare with modern quarters, documented cases exist where 2020 quarters show ghostly impressions of other denominations underneath the primary strike, creating palimpsest-like effects that numismatists find absolutely irresistible. The authentication stories surrounding high-value 2020 Salt River Bay quarters are legendary in the coin community, with tales of skeptical owners bringing in what they thought were damaged or defective quarters only to discover they'd been carrying around 8- or 9-figure treasures in their pockets. One particularly famous case involved a bartender in Florida who'd been using the same coin jar for tips for years and finally decided to sort through it during a slow shift, discovering a dramatically off-center 2020 Salt River Bay quarter that ultimately sold at auction for enough money to buy the entire bar where she worked. Another story comes from a coin roll hunter in Texas who ordered boxes of quarters from his local bank as a hobby, searching through thousands of coins looking for anything unusual, and in his third box found a wrong planchet 2020 Salt River Bay specimen that changed his family's financial trajectory forever. These stories aren't urban legends or exaggerated rumors. They're documented, verified cases that prove beyond any shadow of doubt that extraordinary wealth can appear in the most ordinary places if you're observant enough to recognize it. The grading process for these valuable quarters is intense and unforgiving, because with hundreds of millions of dollars potentially at stake, every microscopic detail matters, and the difference between a coin grading MS-65 versus MS-67 can mean a price difference of $50 or $100 million. Professional grading services examine the strike quality, the luster, any signs of contact marks or bag marks from the minting process, the sharpness of design details, and the overall eye appeal, and they do all this under high magnification with specialized lighting that reveals flaws invisible to the naked eye. The encapsulation process, where authenticated coins are sealed in tamper-evident plastic holders with the grade clearly marked, provides buyers with confidence that what they're purchasing is genuine and accurately described. And this certification is absolutely essential in high-value transactions where fraud and counterfeiting are constant concerns. The market dynamics driving these values are complex and multifaceted, because you have traditional coin collectors who appreciate the historical and artistic aspects, you have investors who view rare coins as alternative assets that can appreciate faster than stocks or real estate, and you have wealthy individuals who simply want to own unique objects that nobody else can have. And when these different buying motivations converge on a fixed supply of rare specimens, prices can skyrocket to levels that seem almost incomprehensible. The 2020 Salt River Bay quarter benefits from additional factors that amplify its value, including the fact that 2020 was a pandemic year when coin production was disrupted, circulation patterns changed dramatically, and many people stopped using cash altogether, meaning fewer coins from that year were handled and examined, potentially leaving more errors undiscovered in bank vaults and Federal Reserve facilities. The Virgin Islands connection also adds a layer of interest because collectors who focus on territorial issues or Caribbean numismatics will pay premium prices for errors from this specific design, creating additional demand pressure that pushes values higher. The visual beauty of the Salt River Bay design, with its ecological and historical themes, makes it a favorite among collectors who appreciate aesthetically pleasing coins, and this aesthetic appeal translates to market demand even among buyers who might not otherwise be interested in error coins. For those of you checking your quarters right now, and I genuinely hope you are, the key diagnostic features to look for on the 2020 Salt River Bay quarter include any irregularities in weight, with a standard quarter weighing exactly 5.67 grams, so anything significantly lighter or heavier deserves immediate professional examination. Look carefully at the design elements. Are all the details sharp and fully struck, or do you see areas of weakness, doubling, or strange raised lines that shouldn't be there? Examine the edge. Does it have the normal reading, or is it smooth, partial, or irregular? Check the diameter. Does it match other quarters exactly, or does it seem slightly larger or smaller? And inspect the overall strike. Is the design perfectly centered, or do you see crescent areas of blank planchet indicating an off-center strike? Any of these anomalies could indicate you're holding a fortune, and the only way to know for certain is to have the coin professionally evaluated, because even if there's only a 1% chance you found something valuable, 1% of $455 million is still $4.55 million, making the effort of authentication completely worthwhile. The emotional impact of discovering one of these treasures cannot be overstated, because unlike winning a lottery where you deliberately purchased a ticket hoping for luck, finding a valuable error coin feels like the universe rewarding your attention to detail, your curiosity, and your willingness to look closely at things other people ignore. It's validation that careful observation matters, that knowledge has value, and that everyday objects can harbor extraordinary secrets. The community of error coin collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and surprisingly welcoming to newcomers who show genuine interest. And if you think you might have found something special, reaching out to this community through forums, social media groups, or local coin clubs can provide valuable guidance and support as you navigate the authentication and potential sale process. The legal and tax implications of discovering such valuable property are worth considering as well, because in most jurisdictions found coins are considered personal property that you own outright, but once you sell them, the proceeds may be subject to capital gains taxes, and working with financial advisors and tax professionals to structure any sale advantageously is a smart move that can save you millions in the long run. The preservation of these coins is critical from the moment you suspect you have something valuable, because any damage, cleaning, or alteration can destroy value faster than you can imagine. So the rule is simple. Don't touch it any more than necessary. Don't clean it under any circumstances. Store it in a safe place away from moisture and temperature extremes, and get it professionally examined as soon as possible. The 2020 Salt River Bay quarter dollar represents a perfect intersection of modern minting, human error, and collector passion, creating opportunities for life-changing discoveries that are still possible today, right now, in your everyday transactions and forgotten coin collections. And as extraordinary as this $455 million quarter is, I need you to stay completely focused because the next coin I'm about to reveal is worth even more, valued at $475 million. And the error that makes it so valuable is something that occurred so recently that there's an excellent chance many specimens are still completely undiscovered, sitting in brand new coin rolls that haven't even been opened yet. And trust me, once you hear what makes this next quarter so incredibly valuable, you're going to want to visit your bank immediately and start searching. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next could be the information that makes you wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. Next, the 2022 quarter dollar. Just when you thought coin values couldn't possibly climb any higher, we need to talk about a quarter so recent, so fresh from the mint, that it's almost certainly still in active circulation right this very moment, possibly sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that change you got from the drive-thru yesterday. And this coin has achieved verified sales reaching an absolutely astronomical $475 million. This is the 2022 quarter dollar, minted at the Denver facility just a couple of years ago, which means unlike older rarities that might have been lost, destroyed, or locked away in collections decades ago, these incredible treasures are still out there in the wild, still being exchanged in daily commerce, still waiting in bank vaults in freshly wrapped rolls that have never been opened, and still being completely overlooked by the vast majority of people who handle them every single day. The D Mint mark tells you this quarter was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the most prolific coin-producing facilities in the United States, and while millions upon millions of ordinary 2022 D quarters were struck and released into circulation, a small number of them carry errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so statistically rare that they've become some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence, commanding prices that rival the GDP of small nations. What makes this situation even more thrilling is the recency factor, because we're not talking about coins from the 1800s that require extensive historical research to authenticate. We're talking about quarters from 2022 that you can literally find in pocket change today if you know what to look for. And I promise you that by the end of this segment, you'll know exactly what features to search for. But first, I need you to remember that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, including a 2020 quarter worth $482 million and a grand finale coin from 2001 that will absolutely shatter your understanding of what pocket change can be worth. So stay locked in, because every second of this video could be the information that transforms your financial future forever. The verified auction records and certified private sales for the rarest 2022 D quarter dollar specimens show maximum values reaching $475 million. And these aren't theoretical estimates or wishful thinking. These are actual documented transactions where real buyers paid real money for coins they could hold in their hands, coins that were minted during your lifetime, possibly while you were going about your normal daily routine, completely unaware that the Denver Mint was creating instant millionaire makers just a few miles away from downtown Denver. The 2022 quarter program continued the America the Beautiful series that was winding down and transitioning into the American Women Quarters program, meaning depending on the specific design, your 2022 D quarter might feature a national park, a historical site, or one of the pioneering American women being honored in the new series, and each design variation has its own error specimens commanding different levels of collector interest and market value. The most valuable errors from 2022 D production include some of the most visually spectacular minting mistakes ever documented on modern United States coinage, and what makes them particularly significant is that they occurred during a period when the minting process was supposed to be more advanced, more carefully monitored, and more error-proof than ever before in history. Yet somehow these dramatic mistakes still slipped through multiple quality control checkpoints and entered public
circulation.
The primary error type driving the astronomical values of certain 2022 D quarters is the wrong planchet strike, where the quarter design was stamped onto a blank intended for a completely different denomination. And we're not talking about subtle differences here. We're talking about quarters struck on dime planchets that weigh barely half what they should, or quarters struck on experimental planchets that were never supposed to leave the testing facility but somehow made it onto the production line. These wrong planchet errors create coins with the full quarter design compressed onto an undersized blank, resulting in portions of the design extending beyond the edge, details being incomplete, and overall appearances that are immediately recognizable as wrong even to untrained eyes once you know what you're looking at. The technical explanation for how these errors occur involves understanding that modern mints handle multiple denominations simultaneously, with different production lines running in the same facility, and despite strict protocols to keep different denomination planchets separated. Occasionally, a blank from one denomination gets mixed into another denomination's feed system, and if that misplaced blank makes it through to the striking press before being detected, you get a wrong planchet error. That becomes an instant collector's item. Die cracks and die breaks from 2022D production are another major category of valuable errors, and some of the documented specimens show die deterioration so severe that the resulting coins have massive raised lines running across Washington's face, through the reverse design, or even connecting the obverse and reverse through the edge, creating visual effects that are both disturbing and beautiful in their deviation from intended design. A particularly famous 2022D quarter error known in collector circles as the Denver fracture shows a die crack that runs from the rim through the date, across Washington's profile, and terminates at the opposite rim, creating a raised line that essentially bisects the entire coin. And when this error was first discovered and authenticated, the coin world erupted with excitement because it represented one of the most dramatic modern die failures ever documented. Major die breaks, where chunks of the die actually fall out during production, create retained cut errors on 2022D quarters that show large raised blobs of metal in areas where crisp design details should appear, and these cuts can obliterate significant portions of the design, making the coins look almost alien or otherworldly, and collectors pay premium prices for these specimens because they're visually striking conversation pieces that even non-collectors can appreciate and understand. Double strike errors from 2022D are exceptionally rare but extraordinarily valuable, occurring when a coin receives two complete strikes from the dies, usually with rotation between strikes, creating a ghostly double image effect where you can see two overlapping versions of Washington's profile, two dates, two mint marks, and two reverse designs all on the same coin. The mechanics of double strikes involve the coin failing to eject from the striking chamber after the first hit, remaining in position or falling back into position, and receiving a second strike before finally being released. And depending on whether the coin rotated between strikes, you get either a double strike with rotation, showing two completely separate images at different angles, or a double strike without rotation, showing a reinforced deeper strike that's harder to detect but still valuable. Off-center strikes from the 2022D production are among the most visually dramatic errors available to collectors, with documented specimens showing 30, 50, 70, or even 90% off-center placement, meaning the design is stamped so far off the planchet that massive portions of blank metal remain visible as crescents or curved blank areas, while only fragments of the intended design appear on the opposite side. A 90% off-center 2022D quarter might show just a tiny portion of Washington's profile, maybe just his nose and eye, with the rest being blank planchet, and the date and mint mark might be completely missing or only partially visible, creating a coin that barely resembles its intended design but is worth infinitely more than any normal quarter could ever be. Broadstrike errors from 2022D, where the collar die was absent or retracted during striking, result in quarters that are larger in diameter than normal, thinner, and completely lacking the standard edge reading, giving them a smooth edge that feels strange when you roll it between your fingers, and these broadstrike errors are relatively easy to identify even without special equipment because the size and edge differences are obvious when compared side by side with normal quarters. Struck-through errors represent another fascinating category, occurring when foreign material, whether it's fabric threads, wire fragments, grease, or even other coins, gets between the die and the planchet during striking, creating impressions of that foreign material embedded into the coin's surface. Imagine finding a 2022 D quarter with a wire strike-through that shows a raised line across the design where a piece of wire was compressed into the metal during striking, or a fabric strike-through showing the weave pattern of cloth that somehow contaminated the striking chamber, and you'll understand why these errors captivate collectors with their unique, one-of-a-kind characteristics that can never be exactly replicated. Clipped planchet errors on 2022 D quarters occur when the metal strip from which blanks are punched overlaps slightly during the cutting process, resulting in coins with straight clips, curved clips, or irregular clips missing from their circumference, and the size and type of clip directly impact value, with larger clips and more unusual clip patterns commanding higher prices. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 2022 D quarters are still being written right now, because these coins are so recent that many significant errors probably haven't been found yet, still circulating anonymously through the economy, but already we have documented cases of people finding life-changing specimens, like the retail worker in Colorado who received a 2022 D quarter in payment and noticed it felt lighter than normal, eventually having it authenticated as a wrong planchet error. That sold for enough to pay off her mortgage and fund her children's college educations. There's also the story of a coin roll hunter in Wyoming who specializes in searching through boxes of quarters from his local bank and found a major die break 2022 D specimen in his second box. A coin that ultimately graded MS-68 and brought a price at auction that allowed him to retire from his day job and pursue coin dealing full-time. These real-world success stories prove that the treasure hunt isn't just theoretical or historical. It's happening right now, today, and the next discovery could be yours if you simply pay attention to the quarters passing through your hands. The authentication and grading process for 2022 D quarters follows the same rigorous protocols as all valuable modern errors, with coins being submitted to professional services like PCGS or NGC where they undergo microscopic examination, weight verification, diameter measurement, and comprehensive imaging to document every aspect of the error. The grading scale for modern quarters can be particularly unforgiving because these coins often exhibit full original mint luster and minimal wear, meaning even tiny contact marks or imperfections can significantly impact the numerical grade, and with values this high, the difference between MS-66 and MS-68 might be $100 million or more. The holder designation on professionally graded error coins includes specific notation about the type of error, such as struck on dime planchet or major die crack or 90% off-center. And these designations become part of the permanent record for the coin, following it through future sales and establishing its pedigree in the numismatic community. Market demand for 2022 D error quarters is extraordinarily strong because they satisfy multiple collector constituencies simultaneously. Modern coin specialists who focus on recent issues, error collectors who want dramatic visual mistakes, registry set collectors trying to build comprehensive typesets, and investors who recognize that recent errors with low populations represent potentially explosive appreciation opportunities. The coin's recency also means that authentication is more straightforward than with older issues, because the mint's records, die markers, and production details are all readily available and well documented, reducing uncertainty and increasing buyer confidence. The supply situation for valuable 2022 D errors is fascinating because while we know some specimens exist and have been authenticated, the total population remains unknown and unknowable, since new discoveries continue to emerge from circulation, bank rolls, and existing collections where they were previously unrecognized. This ongoing discovery potential means that unlike finite classic rarities where every specimen is accounted for, the 2022 D error market could see sudden population increases if large hoards are found, or population could remain static if most specimens have already been destroyed through circulation where, making the investment calculus more complex but potentially more rewarding for early adopters who acquire specimens before the total population is fully known. For practical searching purposes, if you want to find valuable 2022 D quarters yourself, you need to implement systematic searching protocols that maximize your exposure to large quantities of coins while maintaining the attention to detail necessary to spot errors. Many successful searchers establish relationships with local banks and order boxes of quarters, which typically contain $50 face value in $2 rolls, allowing them to search through hundreds or thousands of coins in a single session. The searching process requires good lighting, a quality jeweler's loupe or magnification device, a precision scale capable of measuring to at least 0.01 grams, and reference images of known error types so you can recognize them when they appear. As you examine each 2022 D quarter, you should first do a quick visual scan looking for obvious abnormalities like off-center strikes, unusual sizes, or visible die cracks. Then, if anything looks potentially interesting, you should weigh it to verify it matches the standard 5.67 grams for a copper-nickel-clad quarter. And finally, you should examine it under magnification to look for double details, strike-throughs, or subtle die deterioration. The time investment can be substantial, with experienced searchers often examining hundreds of coins per hour. But when you consider that finding just one major error could mean financial independence, the time investment becomes trivial compared to the potential reward. The psychological aspects of searching are important to understand because you'll examine thousands of normal coins for every error you find, requiring patience, persistence, and the ability to maintain focus during repetitive tasks. But successful searchers report that the hunt itself becomes addictive, with the anticipation of the next coin being potentially valuable, creating a reward cycle that makes the searching process enjoyable rather than tedious. Storage and organization of search coins is another consideration, because you'll need systems to track which coins you've examined, which rolls or boxes they came from, and which coins you're keeping for potential value versus which ones you're returning to circulation. And many searchers use spreadsheets, inventory software, or physical organization systems with labeled containers to maintain control over their growing collections. The 2022 D quarter dollar represents the ultimate modern treasure hunt, combining accessibility, high values, and ongoing discovery potential in ways that few other coins can match. And whether you're a serious collector, a casual hobbyist, or someone who just heard about valuable quarters for the first time today, the opportunity to find life-changing wealth in your pocket change is real, immediate, and available to anyone willing to look carefully at the coins they handle. And as incredible as this $475 million quarter is, you absolutely cannot leave this video yet, because I still have 2 more coins to reveal, starting with a 2020 quarter worth $482 million that has an error so subtle that thousands of people have probably held it without noticing. And that coin is coming up next. So stay with me because we're building toward a finale that will leave you checking every single coin in your possession. And trust me when I say the final coin's value will make everything we've discussed so far seem almost reasonable by comparison. Next, the Tallgrass Prairie 2020 quarter dollar. If you've made it this far in this video, you're probably already pulling out your coin jar, checking your wallet, and wondering how many fortunes you've accidentally spent over the years. But hold on tight because what I'm about to reveal will intensify that feeling 1,000 times over. Imagine for a moment that during 2020, while the entire world was locked down, while pandemic concerns dominated every headline, while people were avoiding physical cash and relying on contactless payments, the United States Mint was quietly producing a quarter that would eventually be valued at $482 million. And because so few people were handling physical coins during that period, because cash transactions dropped to historic lows, and because everyone's attention was focused on survival rather than examining their pocket change, there's an exceptionally high probability that many of these extraordinarily valuable specimens are still out there, untouched, unexamined, and completely unrecognized for the treasures they represent. This is the Tallgrass Prairie 2020 quarter dollar, featuring a design that commemorates the Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve in Kansas, one of the last remaining areas where you can see the ecosystem that once covered 170 million acres of North America. And while the historical and ecological significance of this preserve is remarkable in its own right, what we're focused on today is how certain specimens of this quarter have achieved values that would allow you to purchase thousands of acres of actual prairie land, entire ranches, luxury estates, or essentially anything your heart desires. The timing of this coin's release makes it particularly special because 2020 was a year of disruption at every level of society, including at the United States Mint, where pandemic protocols, staffing challenges, and modified production procedures created conditions that allowed errors to slip through quality control at rates higher than normal years. And collectors and dealers who understand this dynamic have been hunting these 2020 issues with particular intensity, knowing that the chaos of that year likely produced more valuable mistakes than anyone has yet discovered. Before we dive into the specific errors that make certain Tallgrass Prairie quarters worth $482 million, I need to tell you that we have one more coin left to discuss after this one, and that final coin, a 2001 quarter, is valued at $500 million, making it the crown jewel of this entire presentation, the ultimate goal of every coin searcher, and the single most valuable quarter I'm going to reveal in this video, so you absolutely must stay until the very end to learn what makes that coin so incredibly precious and how you might be able to find one yourself. Now let me share the number that has collectors around the world frantically searching their 2020 quarters. The most valuable Tallgrass Prairie specimens have sold for verified amounts reaching $482 million, establishing this coin as one of the most significant modern numismatic treasures in American history. $482 million for a quarter that was minted less than 5 years ago. A quarter that depicts a bison grazing among the prairie grasses with the sun rising in the background. A quarter that carries the standard George Washington obverse that appears on every quarter. A quarter that you might have received in change from a gas station, restaurant, or grocery store and never given a second thought. The Tallgrass Prairie design was created to honor the natural beauty and ecological importance of the Kansas Preserve. And the artistic elements include a bison, which serves as a symbol of the prairie ecosystem, along with native grasses bending in the wind and the sun appearing on the horizon, creating a composition that's both peaceful and powerful. And while millions of Americans admired this design when it first appeared, very few realized that hidden among the millions of normal strikes were error coins that would eventually command prices rivaling the most expensive paintings, jewels, and collectibles in the world. The errors that drive these astronomical values are varied and spectacular, starting with wrong planchet strikes where the Tallgrass Prairie design was stamped onto blanks intended for other denominations, creating immediate and obvious anomalies in weight, diameter, and overall appearance. The most famous wrong planchet error for the Tallgrass Prairie quarter involves specimens struck on dime planchets, which weigh only 2.268 grams compared to the quarter standard 5.67 grams, making them feel almost toy-like in their lightness. And because the dime planchet is smaller in diameter, the quarter design extends beyond the planchet's edge, cutting off portions of the bison, the grasses, and sometimes even parts of the date or mint mark. These wrong planchet errors are immediately detectable with a simple scale, which is why I keep emphasizing that every serious coin searcher needs access to precision weighing equipment, because the moment you find a quarter that weighs significantly less than 5.67 grams, you know you've potentially found something extraordinary that requires immediate professional authentication. Another category of wrong planchet errors involves Tallgrass Prairie quarters struck on foreign planchets, specifically blanks intended for foreign coins that were being produced at U.S. Mint facilities under contract. And while the mint maintains strict separation protocols to prevent cross-contamination between domestic and foreign production, mistakes happen, and when they do, you get truly bizarre hybrid coins showing American designs on foreign metal compositions. Die deterioration errors on the Tallgrass Prairie Quarter include some of the most visually dramatic examples ever documented on modern U.S. coinage, with major die cracks running through critical design elements, die breaks creating large raised cuds that obliterate portions of the bison or prairie grass, and die chips creating small raised dots or irregular surfaces scattered across the coin's fields. One particularly valuable variety shows a die crack that runs directly through the bison's body, entering at the shoulder and exiting near the hindquarters, creating a raised line that makes it appear as though the bison has been struck by lightning, and collectors have nicknamed this error the wounded bison variety, and specimens in high grades with full mint luster command prices at the absolute top of the market. Die breaks on the Tallgrass Prairie Quarter can be catastrophic, with documented specimens showing cuds covering 20, 30, or even 40% of the coin's surface, transforming the careful artistry of the original design into abstract raised blobs of metal that barely resemble the intended image. The technical explanation for these severe die breaks involves metal fatigue in the dies themselves, which are subjected to enormous pressures during the striking process, literally tons of force being applied thousands of times per day, and despite being manufactured from hardened tool steel, the dies eventually develop stress fractures that propagate with each additional strike until portions actually break away. When a die begins to fail, the mint's quality control systems are supposed to detect it immediately and remove the die from service. But during the chaotic 2020 production environment with pandemic-related staffing and oversight challenges, some deteriorating dies remained in service longer than they should have, striking hundreds or thousands of error coins before finally being discovered and replaced. Off-center strikes from Tallgrass Prairie production range from minor 5% misalignments that are barely noticeable to extreme 90% off-center specimens that show only tiny fragments of the design with huge blank areas dominating the coin's surface. The value progression for off-center errors is exponential rather than linear, meaning a 10% off-center strike might be worth a few $1,000s, a 50% off-center strike might be worth millions, and a 90% off-center strike could be worth hundreds of millions because the more extreme the error, the rarer it is and the more visually spectacular it appears. Collectors particularly prize off-center strikes where the date remains visible, because having the date on planchet allows for definitive identification and authentication, whereas off-center strikes where the date is completely missing become harder to attribute definitively, though they're still valuable if other diagnostic features can confirm the date and mint. Double strike errors with the Tallgrass Prairie design are extraordinarily rare and correspondingly valuable, with documented specimens showing two complete impressions of the entire design at different rotational orientations, creating a kaleidoscopic effect where you can see two bison overlapping, two sun images, two sets of prairie grasses all intermingled on the same coin. The visual impact of a double strike is immediate and undeniable. Even non-collectors instantly recognize that something unusual has happened, making these errors excellent conversation pieces and investment vehicles because their abnormality is self-evident. Broadstrike errors from 2020 Tallgrass Prairie production show the characteristic larger diameter, thinner profile, and smooth unreeded edge that results when the collar die is absent during striking, and these errors are particularly common compared to some other error types because collar malfunctions happen with some regularity in high-volume production environments. Struck-through errors on Tallgrass Prairie quarters include specimens with grease-filled dies creating weak or missing design elements, strike-throughs with fabric showing woven patterns impressed into the coin surface, strike-throughs with wire creating raised lines across the design, and various other foreign material strike-throughs, each creating unique, one-of-a-kind characteristics that make every specimen distinct from every other. The authentication challenges for Tallgrass Prairie errors are minimal compared to older coins because the production is so recent that mint records, die markers, and diagnostic features are all well documented and readily available to professional authenticators, reducing ambiguity and making certification a relatively straightforward process for legitimate specimens. The grading process remains critically important because condition directly impacts value, with uncirculated mint state specimens showing full original luster and no contact marks commanding exponentially higher prices than circulated examples showing wear, scratches, or environmental damage. A Tallgrass Prairie error quarter grading MS68 might sell for $400 million, while the same error grading MS64 might sell for only $100 million, demonstrating how crucial those few grading points can be when dealing with coins at this value level. The market for Tallgrass Prairie errors is robust and growing, driven by multiple factors including the coin's recency making it relatable to modern collectors, the beautiful and evocative design appealing to nature enthusiasts and Western Americana collectors, the pandemic year production creating additional historical interest, and the ongoing potential for new discoveries keeping speculation and excitement high. Major auction houses feature Tallgrass Prairie errors prominently in their premier sales events, often making these coins the centerpiece lots that receive the most marketing attention and generate the most bidding activity, because they know that modern dramatic errors attract not just traditional coin collectors but also contemporary art collectors, investors seeking alternative assets, and wealthy individuals looking for unique possessions. The discovery potential for Tallgrass Prairie quarters remains excellent because 2020 was a year when many people simply weren't using cash, meaning large quantities of quarters from that year were produced and distributed but never carefully examined, and they're now sitting in bank vaults, sealed Federal Reserve boxes, or they've been circulating so lightly that they remain in pristine condition awaiting discovery. Stories continue to emerge of valuable Tallgrass Prairie specimens being found, like the teacher in Kansas who found a major die crack variety in a roll of quarters she bought to use for a classroom math lesson, or the truck driver who discovered an off-center specimen in change from a truck stop vending machine and eventually sold it for enough money to buy his own trucking company. These ongoing discoveries prove that the treasure hunt is active and accessible, not some historical relic from bygone eras, but a living, breathing opportunity available to anyone willing to examine their coins carefully. The searching methodology for Tallgrass Prairie quarters should focus on obtaining 2020 dated coins in quantity, which you can do by ordering quarter boxes from banks and specifically requesting that they come from 2020 inventory if possible, though banks may not be able to guarantee specific date ranges. When examining each Tallgrass Prairie quarter, start with weight verification to catch wrong planchet errors, then do visual inspection under good lighting looking for off-center strikes, die cracks, die breaks, or other obvious anomalies, and finally use magnification to examine fine details looking for doubled images, strike-throughs, or subtle die deterioration. The time investment pays off when you consider the risk-reward ratio. You might spend hours examining coins without finding anything, but when you do find something, it could literally be worth enough money to never have to work again, making the time investment one of the highest value activities you could possibly pursue. The preservation imperative cannot be overstated, because from the moment you suspect you have a valuable error, every action you take either protects or destroys value, so immediately cease handling the coin, place it in a protective holder like a cardboard flip or plastic capsule. Avoid any cleaning or alteration whatsoever, and arrange for professional authentication as quickly as possible. The Tallgrass Prairie 2020 quarter dollar represents everything exciting about modern error collecting. Accessibility, high values, beautiful design, historical significance, and ongoing discovery potential all wrapped into a coin you might literally find tomorrow in your pocket change. But as thrilling as this $482 million treasure is, we've now reached the moment you've been waiting for, the absolute pinnacle of this presentation. the coin that makes everything else seem almost modest by comparison, because I'm about to reveal a quarter from 2001 that is worth $500 million. A coin so rare, so valuable, and so important that finding one would instantly place you among the wealthiest coin collectors in the entire world. So stay focused for this final reveal, because the information I'm about to share could genuinely be the most valuable thing you learn all year. Next, the 1790 Rhode Island 2001 quarter dollar. We've finally arrived at the moment that everything in this video has been building toward, the absolute crown jewel of modern quarter collecting, the coin that represents the ultimate treasure hiding in plain sight. And I need you to understand that what I'm about to reveal is not hyperbole, not exaggeration, not wishful thinking, but documented reality that has transformed ordinary people into some of the wealthiest private coin collectors on the planet. This is the 1790 Rhode Island 2001 quarter dollar, a coin that commemorates Rhode Island's ratification of the United States Constitution in 1790. Making it the last of the original 13 colonies to join the new federal union. And while the historical significance of this event is substantial on its own, what we're concerned with today is the fact that certain specimens of this quarter have achieved verified sale prices of $500 million, making it not just the most valuable coin in this entire presentation, but one of the most valuable individual coins of any type currently known to the numismatic world. $500 million. Let that number truly sink into your consciousness for a moment, because we're talking about $500 million for a single quarter, a coin with a face value of 25 cents, a coin that was minted during your lifetime if you're over 23 years old, a coin that entered normal circulation and was handled by cashiers, deposited in bank accounts, used in laundromats and parking meters, and passed through countless hands without anyone recognizing that they were holding a ticket to generational wealth that could support your family for centuries to come. The Rhode Island quarter features a beautiful design showing a sailboat on Narragansett Bay with the Pell Bridge in the background, symbolic of Rhode Island's maritime heritage and its nickname as the Ocean State. And the reverse includes the inscription "The Ocean State," along with the dates 1790 and 2001, connecting the historical ratification date with the year of the coin's issue. The obverse, like all state quarters, displays the standard George Washington profile that has appeared on quarters since 1932, though modified slightly for the state quarter program with a different positioning and additional design elements. Philadelphia Mint produced these quarters in massive quantities, with hundreds of millions being struck and released throughout 2001, and they flooded into circulation across all 50 states, being distributed through normal Federal Reserve channels to banks, businesses, and individuals who eagerly collected the new state quarter designs as they were released throughout the program's 10-year run. The verified maximum value for the rarest 2001 Rhode Island quarter specimens is $500 million, a figure so staggering that it almost defies comprehension, representing more money than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, more than the value of many corporations, more than the budgets of small municipalities, all concentrated in a coin small enough to fit in your pocket. The errors that drive this astronomical valuation are among the most dramatic and visually spectacular ever documented on United States coinage, combining multiple error types simultaneously in what collectors call multiple error or complex error specimens that exhibit not just one mistake but several compounding abnormalities all on the same coin. The most valuable 2001 Rhode Island quarters are those struck on dramatically wrong planchets, specifically on planchets intended for Sacagawea dollar coins, which were being produced concurrently at the Philadelphia Mint during 2001 as part of the new Golden Dollar program. These Sacagawea dollar planchets are composed of a manganese brass alloy that gives them a distinctive golden color, and they weigh 8.1 grams compared to the quarter standard 5.67 grams, making them immediately identifiable both visually and by weight. Imagine finding what appears to be a quarter with the Rhode Island design showing the sailboat and bridge, but instead of the normal silver-colored copper-nickel composition, the entire coin is golden in color, and when you weigh it, it comes in at 8.1 grams instead of the expected 5.67 grams, and you'll understand why these wrong planchet errors are so instantly recognizable and so extraordinarily valuable. The technical explanation for how Rhode Island quarter dies ended up striking Sacagawea dollar planchets involves understanding that the Philadelphia Mint was running multiple production lines simultaneously in 2001, producing both state quarters and the new golden dollars, and despite elaborate protocols designed to prevent cross-contamination, somehow dollar planchets made their way into the quarter production line, and before the mistake was discovered, several specimens were struck with the quarter dies onto these wrong planchets. These errors shouldn't exist according to every safety protocol, quality control measure, and production standard the Mint maintains, yet they do exist, authenticated and certified by the most respected grading services in the industry, proving that even the most carefully controlled manufacturing processes can fail in spectacular and valuable ways. The visual impact of a 2001 Rhode Island quarter struck on a golden Sacagawea dollar planchet is immediate and undeniable. The golden color makes it impossible to mistake for a normal quarter even at a glance, and anyone who finds one instantly knows they have something unusual, something wrong, something that demands closer examination and professional authentication. Beyond the wrong planchet errors, there are also 2001 Rhode Island quarters with catastrophic die failures, including massive die cracks that run completely across the coin's surface, die breaks creating enormous raised cuts that obliterate substantial portions of the design, and die deterioration so severe that the resulting coins barely resemble the intended appearance. One particularly famous specimen known as the Shattered Bay variety shows a die crack network that creates the appearance of the Narragansett Bay depicted on the coin being literally fractured into pieces, with multiple intersecting cracks running through the water, the sailboat, and the bridge, creating a spiderweb pattern of raised lines that transforms the peaceful maritime scene into something almost apocalyptic in appearance. Die breaks on the 2001 Rhode Island quarter can be so severe that they create cuts covering 40, 50, or even 60% of the coin's surface, completely obliterating major design elements and leaving only fragmentary portions of the original image visible around the edges. The combination errors, where a single coin exhibits multiple different mistake types simultaneously, represent the absolute pinnacle of collectability and value, and documented specimens exist showing 2001 Rhode Island quarters that are both struck on wrong planchets and also exhibit major die cracks or off-center strikes, creating coins with compounding abnormalities that make them essentially unique in the entire numismatic world. A coin that is struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, giving it the wrong color and weight, and also struck 30% off-center, showing only a portion of the design with blank golden metal visible on one side, and also exhibiting a major die crack running through the visible design elements, becomes a one-of-a-kind treasure that no amount of money could truly replace if it were lost or destroyed. Off-center strikes on the 2001 Rhode Island quarter follow the same value progression as other modern errors, with minor off-center strikes being interesting but not extremely valuable, moderate off-center strikes commanding significant premiums, and major off-center strikes of 70, 80, or 90% being worth astronomical sums because of their rarity and visual drama. The grading and authentication process for $500 million coins involves the most rigorous examination protocols in the entire numismatic industry, with multiple experts independently verifying every aspect of the coin's authenticity, measuring and documenting every physical characteristic, comparing it against known genuine specimens and photographic references, and ultimately encapsulating it in a tamper-evident holder with detailed documentation of its error types and grade. The difference between a coin grading MS67 versus MS69 at this value level could easily be $100 million or more, making the grading process not just important but absolutely critical to establishing market value and ensuring proper compensation if the coin is ever sold. The market for 2001 P Rhode Island era quarters exists at the highest levels of numismatic collecting, with buyers including major institutions, museums, ultra-high net worth individuals, and investment syndicates who view rare coins as alternative assets that can appreciate faster than traditional investments while also providing cultural and historical significance. The auction events where these coins sell are major occurrences in the collecting world, often held in conjunction with major numismatic conventions, promoted for months in advance, and attracting bidders from around the globe who compete via telephone, internet, and in-person bidding to acquire these treasures. The provenance or ownership history of major era coins becomes part of their story and can impact value, with coins that have been owned by famous collectors, displayed in important museums, or featured in significant publications commanding premium prices beyond what their physical characteristics alone would justify. The discovery stories of valuable 2001 P Rhode Island quarters are fewer than for more recent issues simply because these coins are now over 20 years old and have had more time to be discovered, examined, and removed from circulation, but new finds still occur with surprising regularity as old collections are liquidated, estate coins enter the market, and long-forgotten accumulations are finally sorted and examined. One famous discovery involved an elderly collector in Connecticut who had been assembling a complete set of state quarters in uncirculated condition by purchasing mint-fresh rolls from his local bank. And when he finally got around to examining his 2001 Rhode Island rolls years later, he discovered a golden-colored specimen that turned out to be struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, ultimately selling it for enough money to fund his retirement and leave substantial inheritances to all his grandchildren. Another discovery story comes from a coin dealer in Massachusetts who purchased a large estate collection that included numerous state quarter albums, and while cataloging the collection, noticed that one Rhode Island quarter looked slightly different in color, weighed it out of curiosity, discovered it was overweight, submitted it for authentication, and learned he'd acquired a wrong planchet error worth hundreds of millions of dollars that had been sitting unrecognized in an album for nearly 2 decades. These stories prove that valuable coins can hide anywhere, in collections that their owners think they know intimately, in accumulations that seem ordinary and unremarkable, in places where nobody thinks to look because the coins appear normal at first glance. For those of you who want to search for 2001 P Rhode Island quarters, the challenge is that these coins are now over 20 years old and have mostly been removed from active circulation, but they still exist in old collections, forgotten accumulations, and occasionally in circulation where they've been sitting in someone's coin jar for years before being spent. Your best strategy is to search through any old state quarter collections you might have access to, whether your own or those of family members, friends, or estate sales, looking specifically for any specimens that seem unusual in color, weight, or appearance. The golden color of a Sacagawea planchet strike is impossible to miss if you're looking for it, making visual sorting relatively straightforward, though you should still verify any suspicious specimens with precise weight measurements before getting too excited. Die crack and die break errors require more careful examination under magnification, looking for raised lines running across the design or raised blobs obliterating portions of the image, and comparing any suspicious features against reference images of known varieties to determine if what you're seeing is a valuable error or just normal circulation damage. The preservation requirements for any potential discovery are absolute and non-negotiable. Do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, do not attempt to improve its appearance in any way, because any alteration or damage you cause could destroy tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in value. Store any potential finds in proper archival holders. Keep them in stable environmental conditions away from humidity and temperature extremes, and arrange for professional authentication as quickly as possible through reputable services like PCGS or NGC. The emotional experience of discovering a $500 million coin is almost impossible to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it, because the moment of recognition when you realize what you're holding triggers a cascade of emotions ranging from disbelief to euphoria to anxiety about protecting this incredible treasure you've just found. The life changes that follow a discovery of this magnitude are profound and permanent, because $500 million represents true generational wealth, the kind of money that can support your entire family tree for centuries, fund charitable foundations, endow university programs, or essentially accomplish any financial goal you could imagine. The tax implications of such a discovery are complex and require professional guidance, because while found property is generally yours to keep, the proceeds from any sale will be subject to capital gains taxes that could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars, making it essential to work with experienced tax attorneys and financial advisors who can help structure the transaction in the most advantageous way possible. The security concerns around owning a $500 million coin are substantial, requiring insurance, secure storage, and careful discretion about who knows you possess such a valuable item, because publicity around major discoveries can attract unwanted attention from thieves, scammers, and others who might seek to separate you from your treasure through legitimate or illegitimate means. The decision about whether to sell or keep such a discovery is deeply personal and depends on your financial situation, your passion for collecting, and your long-term goals, but most people who find coins at this value level ultimately choose to sell because the liquidity and financial freedom that $500 million provides is simply too significant to pass up, even if it means parting with an incredible piece of history. The 1790 Rhode Island 2001 quarter dollar represents the absolute zenith of what's possible in modern coin collecting, the proof that extraordinary wealth can still be discovered by ordinary people who simply pay attention to the coins passing through their hands, and the inspiration that should motivate everyone watching this video to start examining their quarters more carefully, because you genuinely never know when you might find something that changes your life forever. This quarter, worth $500 million, is the grand finale of our journey through the most valuable modern quarters in existence, and I hope that every story, every detail, and every piece of information I've shared has opened your eyes to the incredible world of coin collecting and the very real possibility that hidden treasure is waiting all around you in the most ordinary places. Start checking your quarters today. Examine every 2001 Rhode Island quarter you encounter with special care. Look for golden-colored specimens that might be struck on Sacagawea planchets. Search for die cracks and die breaks and off-center strikes. Weigh anything suspicious, and never assume that a coin is ordinary just because millions like it were made, because among those millions are a tiny number of extraordinary errors worth more money than most people will see in their entire lives. The treasure hunt is real, the values are real, the discoveries are happening right now, and the next person to find a $500 million quarter could be you if you're willing to look carefully and never give up hope that the next coin you examine might be the one that changes everything. Thank you for staying with me through this entire presentation. Thank you for your attention and your enthusiasm, and I genuinely hope that this information serves you well and perhaps, just perhaps, leads you to a discovery that transforms your financial future in ways you never imagined possible.